Someone asked me yesterday when we were going through a strategy session, if you had a superpower, what would it be? And I said my superpower would just simply be to make people believe that my only goal in this work is greater outcomes for kids. That is my only goal. That is the only thing that I want to make sure that we do. And I wish that I could make everyone else have that same goal with me. Now, does that mean that nothing else matters? No, absolutely not. We have to value our workers. We have to make sure that our employees feel valued. They have a place to grow professionally. You know, they have value through their compensation structure. We have to make sure that our parents are part of the process. You know, we have to work with community leaders because these kids are going to leave our schools and go into jobs, and they have to be prepared. And so all of these other things matter, but for me every day, beyond every bit of that, is the fact that I have to do better for 50,000 kids in this parish. 81% of our students are economically disadvantaged. And so that is a real challenge. We have 74% of our students, if you add some of the numbers on the left, are students of color. I want you to know, obviously, this is the largest system in Louisiana, and it's the 98th largest system in the United States. 77 of our schools have ESL programs, total enrollment's right under 50,000. 15.1 English language learners, 27.2 Hispanic. So for instance, I was having a visit with a social studies teacher at Grace King the other day, and we're having a conversation. He says, I don't think people realize I have 7 different primary languages in my classroom. And so think about that if you're a teacher and you're responsible for the academic results of those kids, and the primary languages in your classroom, there are 7, and 6 of those aren't English. And that is a challenge, especially if professional development hasn't been provided comprehensively so that our educators know how to best educate students when they're not coming to the classroom with English as a primary language. And it reinforced the conversation that I have with a friend of mine from time to time, and that is a conversation we have about what's the hardest job in America. And he says the hardest job in America is to be a teacher. And I say, you're wrong. That's not the hardest job in America. I said the hardest job in America is to be an effective teacher, because we can give anyone a set of keys. We can say, there's your desk. But for you to go in and build relationships with kids, for you to go in and build relationships with families, for you to deliver content well, and do that from 8 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon in that classroom, and then do all the other things that you have to do to be effective, that is the hardest job in America. It is hard. And we've got to value those people doing that work. We've got to make sure that 1, our teachers have strong leadership in front of them. 2, they have a place where their voices can be heard and they can grow as professionals. And 3, they need a compensation package that makes sense for them. 21st century compensation package that makes sense for them. And so there was talk about the millage that did not pass last time. If you're going to put a millage out, you have to have a reason for putting it out, and it has to be something that actually makes sense. That people who voted no last time will be able to say, you know what, that makes sense. I get that. We need to do that for our teachers. We need to do that for our kids. I found that whenever I would go from school to school, those people in those schools had completely different resources. And so there was no way that the district could effectively develop or train or support teachers when you have 7,000 people doing completely different things. And so, especially given the transient population, we had to standardize curriculum. And I want to applaud our board because I brought forward to them an approach or a recommendation to move to the highest level of curriculum for our kids, and they approved that. And so now across the district next year, all of our schools will have a shared curriculum. And so that will allow us to focus our resource on developing in that curriculum. And also it's helpful because it aligns with the state assessment at the end of the year. So a lot of the things that teachers were using throughout the course of the year did not match for the kid with what they would be assessed on at the end of the year. That also matters because teachers' evaluation, which depends on that result, if they're not teaching what the assessment says at the end of the year, it puts them at a disadvantage. The greatest challenge that we have as a generation educationally has to do with kids that aren't even in our school system. The greatest challenge that we have are the kids that aren't to the system yet, birth to 4. If you're a child and you're born in a home that is impoverished, you will hear about 30 million less words before you start kindergarten as opposed to a child in a middle-class home. Think about the advantage that that middle-class child has over that child born in poverty, having heard 30 million more words. Well over half the kids that we receive to us in kindergarten in public schools are not kindergarten ready. In some communities, that number's up in the 90s. That means they don't know blue from green. That means they can't count to 10. That means they don't know their real name in many cases. They know their nickname. And until we realize this is not just a K-12 issue, but this is a community issue, this is a regional issue, a state issue, and a national issue, we can be as strong as we want to be between 8 and 3, and we will make it better for kids, but our communities will not fundamentally transform until we take ownership for that piece. That's the greatest challenge we have educationally, and it's before they even get to us.